You need to allow homeschooling to come into your life, virtual learning to come into your life, adjust accordingly versus trying to make your life fit into this. Hey, welcome back to my channel. So this is Melissa here, as promised, with a video on how to homeschool virtual learning with multiple children. So before we jump into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. As always, make sure as you're watching this video that you watch it to the end. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave a comment down below if there's something that I say that sparks your interest, or if you have an additional question about it. Just don't forget to leave a comment down below. Here we are, part 3 of a series of videos where I am talking about homeschooling / virtual learning / hybrid learning at home. If you have not already, make sure you check out my previous 2 videos, because now we're well on our way. Now we've talked about what is homeschooling, what is virtual learning. Then I talked about preparing you, the teacher, the person that's going to be facilitating learning. And then as a subcategory, I'm doing a video today talking about what do you do when you have multiple children? How on earth do you juggle homeschooling multiple children, even children that are younger than the school-age children? Without further ado, let's get right into this video. So as I did with previous videos, I'm going to break down and guide our conversation into 5 subcategories. I'm going to be talking about your attitude, preparation, organization, by execution, and success. All those things and how it relates to homeschooling in a family with multiple children. Last but not least, as I mentioned before, but I like to mention because I think a lot of people also are in this situation where they're homeschooling and they are virtual learning and they still have to work. So unless you've been under a rock, unless you just don't know what's going on, you know that America has entered into this pandemic, COVID-19. Regardless of how you feel about it, whether it's a hoax or not, the bottom line is we all have been faced with the challenge of what to do with our school-age children, whether we want, and college actually, whether we want them to continue to go to school on the brick and mortar, if your district is making that available to you, or do you want them to do hybrid learning, that's part-time virtual and part-time in the classroom, or virtual learning or homeschooling. This video is going to really be tailored to people that want to virtual, homeschool, and hybrid. If you're going to the brick and mortar school, I think that this video can just be helpful with juggling schedules. I'm going to be talking to families that have found themselves in this situation where they're going to be faced with homeschooling and they know, okay, I have to deal with homeschooling / virtual learning, and I'm going to be using that interchangeably. I'm faced with the challenge of homeschooling because because of COVID-19, the district is not opening. But I have Johnny, who is in high school, Sarah, who's in middle school, Benjamin, who's in elementary school, and little David, that's an infant. What on earth am I supposed to do? How on earth do I juggle that? Some of you just may have 2 kids. You may have a newborn baby and this pre-K kid or this kindergarten kid. What am I to do? Let's start with what we always start with, attitude. You should, in order to be successful, you have to understand that this is nothing that's uncommon. It has been done successfully before, and you too can do it. You just have to prepare. You have to prepare. And honestly, that's our next thing. Part of your preparation is that attitude. You have to understand that I know women that have 10 kids and are homeschooling. Children who are with special needs and they are homeschooling. It is doable. If you don't think it's doable, press pause and come back until you realize that it is doable. Leave a comment down below if you still are like, I'm not convinced. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Keep watching. For me, let's rewind a little bit. So when I was homeschooling, my kids were in elementary school, but I also had a daycare, and I also had 9 times out of 10, because I had 5 kids at one point in time, I had my own infant. So what did I do? What did I do to prepare to be successful so that no child was left behind? Literally, my attitude. First of all, I knew that I can do it. I knew that I can do it. And even fast forwarding to 2020, I'm not working. That's not my situation. I don't have any infants at home and I'm not running a daycare. So it's going to be a little bit different for me because my kids are in high school. I don't have to, even though I have to, there are some things that I need to prepare for, but I'll go into that separately. So attitude, your attitude is key. Please know that you can do it, and you can do it, you can do it. And if you're not convinced, like I said, press pause, come back when you know that you can do it. Secondly, preparation. Part of your confidence in knowing that you can do it is the fact that you have clear and precise preparation. How on earth am I going to prepare? Again, you prepare with your attitude. You prepare to make sure that you have the tools that you need. Does that mean that you have to go out and spend all this money to homeschool? Absolutely not. On a basic level in homeschooling, I know some bad homeschoolers who did a very good job with the internet, the library, which isn't open, pencil and paper. That's it. On the more extreme level, you have people that enroll their kids in different curriculum. They go out. I've spent hundreds of dollars on curriculum, but you don't have to do that. That's my point. But you have to figure out what's going to work best. And unfortunately, homeschooling is a lot like playing in makeup, women. You got to kind of play around to figure out what you like. Do I like Abeka? Do I like this one? Do I like K-12? Do I like Christian? Do I want non-Christian? Do I want to make up my own lesson plans? Do I want to give them project-based learning? So there's different things that you can do to be successful as far as preparing. What type of learning would you like your child to have? Are you the type that you're like, you know what? I believe children should learn cursive in 5th grade. I believe that they should learn whatever it is. One of the things that I find is a great resource is if you go to your state's educational department and you find out what's expected of your child in the age that they're in. What is it that is expected? We're talking about multiple children. First of all, let's talk about, so we talked about attitude. You have to make sure that the kids understand there's no option. So you can throw a fit. You can decide to, I'm not learning. And it goes for whether they're going to a brick and mortar school or being homeschooled. You can decide to self-sabotage yourself. But at the end of the day, you're hurting who? You're hurting yourself. So the attitude in this situation is also coming to the table knowing this is where we're at. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Whether you agree or not, the districts are not opening. So this is what your learning is going to look like, period. So let's go ahead and rock it out and be successful. Preparation. Part of your preparation, and I'm going to do a separate video on your kids' learning style. But in that preparation, do you want to do your kids work together better? Are they in the same age bracket where they can work together? Do they work better separately? Peer educators are sometimes the most influential than you or any other teacher can ever be. For an example, if you have a 5th grader and you're trying to get your 1st grader to master a concept, it's nothing against the rules or anything to get that 5th grader to be an influence, at least to review with that 1st grader. So there's nothing against that. Again, I spoke about in the previous video how a lot of homeschooling and virtual learning is kind of like shelving what you think school should look like. Because I know I did some kind of out of the box things for learning. Well, I don't want to get into that because that's a whole separate video that I'm going to do. But talking about multiple children, don't be afraid to use the other children because kids, as you know, especially if they're the younger sibling, they love to learn from the older sibling. Am I saying put that responsibility on that older child? No, that's not what I'm saying. But if the older child is gravitating to help them in that subject, and you know they understand 1 + 1 is 2, don't be afraid to let that 5th grader try to explain that 1 + 1 is 2. You can even use that in high school. If you have one high schooler that is really have mastered math and just really good at math, and then you have another one, if that kid is like I don't get it. Maybe the other sibling can explain. And there's the ice cream truck. So I'm going to let them pass. So that's that part as far as, having the different siblings influence the learning like that. Now, what do I do if all two are doing something differently and I need to be there as a homeschooling parent for all of them? First of all, let's rewind a little bit. Let's go to tools. If you can afford it, especially for virtual learning, I know like for our kids, they both have their separate computers. Even though they're in high school, they're both the same. They have separate things. So they have separate computers. So you want to avoid any type of conflict or overlapping usage as possible if you can afford it. If you cannot, it is definitely manageable, because that goes back to the attitude. Part of the attitude is you realize you're going to have to share this computer. That's just the bottom line. If you have multiple children, as far as virtual learning is concerned, then yes, it would be the dream for some people to make sure that they have multiple computer peripherals and laptops or whatever it is that they're going to access their learning with. Let's say that they don't. That goes back to the organization and so here's the thing that I've discussed in previous videos. Organization and preparation, I'm going to use interchangeably, because as I'm talking about preparing, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to talk about how you're going to organize. So again, I love wall calendars. I love family calendars where everyone sees what everyone is doing. If you need to organize your day and you have multiple children, it's probably going to be advantageous for you to put each kid, if you have one computer, I'm talking about one computer, multiple kids, and not even computer, books. They may want access to a certain book. So regardless, it will be so much easier for you and for the entire family to be able to block off that time and to chart it on a family chart. For an example, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kid A gets the computer between whatever time slots. While that kid's on the computer, you write down that kid's going to be doing art. Because now that kid's going to have some free time. Now, if the two kids like to do art together, then you just reorganize it. But that's part of the preparation. What will my week look like this week? Every Sunday, I would sit down and I would plan out my week. If I had, first of all, I had lesson plan. If I had lesson plans for my daycare, and I would usually do those 4 weeks out at least. I would have the whole month done. But then along with that, I would always say, okay, the 26th, I have a doctor's appointment, or I have this, or we want to go to the zoo. Whatever it is you should write it down on that family calendar, because everyone walking past that calendar would know what to expect. Because then let's say kid A is on a computer and it's not their time. Kid B is using the laptop and it's not their time. Kid C is using the crayons that everyone loves to use, but it's not their turn. You can go to that calendar and say, hey, listen, art isn't until XYZ time. And I'm gonna tell you real quick, thinking about time. So you shouldn't even be over here. So again, preparation and organization. If that's your style, if you're free flowing, free range, then I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about organization in this manner, as far as close to traditional learning, but very individualized. You have to plan just as much as if not more than a traditional teacher would have to do, because you're juggling multiple children. What do I do when I have a kid that needs my attention for a subject, but I have multiple children? It's the art of distraction. The first thing you need to do is figure out when's the best time that kid will learn. When's the best time you notice that kid is a sponge and will soak it up. Whatever time that is, that's the time you want to teach that subject. And if you're not the subject matter expert in the house for that, what do I need to do to make sure that the best person is teaching my child that subject? And I'm talking about outside of virtual learning. Once you figure that out, I'm going to pretend that little Sammy is weak in math, but does very well and seems to be really, really receptive to math concepts at 7 o'clock at night. It's completely okay to teach everything else but math and hold it off till 7. And at 7 o'clock, the other children should be done with their schooling, or they're watching TV, they're doing their own thing. So now they are distracted, so to speak, or occupied, not distracted. So they're occupied, and you have time to devote to little Sammy to get the math done. That's how you do it. You kind of juggle and figure out, okay, what do I need to do? Because in certain scenarios, all kids typically don't demand your attention at all times. And I would like to submit, if your children demand your attention at all times, you have a problem, for lack of a better term. I don't know another term to say it, but that can be problematic. And that's something else that you're going to have to kind of tackle. But I'm talking about multiple children who are able to A, occupy themselves, B, work independently on certain things. What do I do when I need to give directions? It's completely okay. Let's say it's 8 o'clock. We've eaten our breakfast. Our school day is about to start. I'm homeschooling. The virtual teacher isn't on yet. I'm homeschooling, or my kids are virtual learning. It's completely okay to have your kid color, watch TV, do whatever they need to do while you're saying directions to the other kid. You don't have to be doing the same thing at the same time. You can juggle that. If you have that infant that wants to be held, you can hold your baby while you teach. If you have an infant that is teething and not feeling well and had you up all night, it's completely okay to give the kids the subjects. If you're homeschooling, virtual is going to be a little different. Give the kids the subjects that, let's say you're just tired or you're sick or whatever. It's okay to give the children the subjects that you know that they can work on independently until you get that baby settled, so that you can then go back to helping them. That's the beauty that I'm trying to get you to get across. The beauty of homeschooling and virtual learning is that you have a little bit more flexibility than a brick and mortar teacher, because brick and mortar, it's first period and this is what we have to get done, and that's that. Second period, this is what we have to get done, and that's that. You have lunch and that's on that. Like, that's how the brick and mortar school goes. But when you're talking about hybrid, and when you're talking about homeschooling and virtual learning, there's a lot more flexibility, especially when you are dealing with multiple children with different personalities. And that's a lot of it. You really have to look at what the personalities of the children are, especially at a certain age. You know, if your kids are not early morning people, you know, who's to say that you have to wake them up in the morning, early in the morning? You don't. Now, if you feel like it's better for them, that's your choice. Am I sitting here telling you that I'm going to wake up my 2 high schoolers at 6 in the morning as if I would if they were going to traditional school? I'm not going to tell you that that's what I'm going to do. They'll probably be up before 9, but I'm going to look at them and help them, guide them to be successful. And if sleeping in a little bit, 8:30 or whatever, it's completely okay. Especially if they're successful, which they have been up until this point. They're both honor students. I'm not going to tell them when they should get up unless it's a requirement by the school. Then that's something else. But as far as a homeschooling mom, am I going to tell my son he has to do math at 8 in the morning with his sister because she likes to do math at 8 in the morning? Absolutely not. And that's the beauty. I will not. And you don't have to either. That's a pressure you don't need. Last but not least, I have toddlers. I have babies. What do? I want to talk about newborns. I want to talk about babies that you just can't put down. Again, the beauty of homeschooling and virtual learning is you can do what you would normally do on a typical day with your kids in school, but you have the baby. So for an example, if you're teaching your kid a subject, you can hold your baby. The kid can hold the baby while they're learning, because again, they're not in school. That would be inappropriate in a brick and mortar school. But if you're demonstrating something and the baby's reaching for their sibling, it's okay to let them go to their sibling. That's not a problem. The other part I talked about, let's say the little baby's sibling Mom went off to have a baby and you're in the middle of homeschooling and virtual learning. And tomorrow mom's going to get induced and we know it. Do we have to school tomorrow? Unless there's something due, you don't. Unless there's something due and the teacher's saying it's done by X amount of time, as long as you get it in. So what I'm trying to say is you can conduct your everyday family life and still include homeschooling into it and virtual learning into it instead of trying to put your home life into a virtual and homeschooling schedule. That's the difference. You need to allow homeschooling to come into your life, virtual learning to come into your life, adjust accordingly, and then move on from there versus trying to make your life fit into this, because one has more flexibility. Because if you've been living your life up until this point, that's what's working for you. So now you are homeschooling. It shouldn't disrupt what you already got going on. It's going to be different. It's going to be, oh, my kid is home now at 11 during the day versus not. So, but even still, it should not wreck everything. So you have this baby. You have the flexibility, and I can't stress the flexibility enough. Don't forget that you are not required to be many teachers in a traditional sense. It's impossible unless you are a teacher. What you're doing is you're conducting learning, and in the virtual sense. Homeschooling, yes, you are the teacher, unless you're getting someone else to teach the subject or whatever. What do I do with a toddler? Plan. So you have, let's say, a toddler or a kid that's a little bit more active in the home. And so now you're wondering, okay, they are going to be good on their own, or I'm going to need to be explaining things, but what do I do with the kid? Well, on a basic level, one thing you notice about the toddlers is that they love to mimic the older siblings. So one of the things that would be very, very, very easy to do is to give them their own schoolwork. And so that's what I did a lot of times for my younger kids, because they were able to mimic, even though, like, I have pictures of my daughter scribbling on a piece of paper where she was doing schoolwork with her brother, but she was like 3. Let them think that they're doing whatever they're doing. Give them flashcards, and my philosophy about learning at that age is they learn very well through play. So I'm not saying sit them down at a desk and actually teach them those things. But if you feel like you want to, you can do that as well. But what I'm saying is, on a basic level with that 3-year-old, you can give them the same things that, give them a little cute little workbook from the dollar store or from the thrift store. I'm telling you, it will make their day, because they will really be thinking they're doing schoolwork. On a more different level, where it's like, okay, I need to teach my kid, but my toddler's in the way. Nap time. Again, you don't have to do the same schedule that will be done in a traditional school. So if nap time is a good time to go over geography or math, or to have your kid read, have the older sibling read the baby to sleep and then take notes, because now you've killed 3 birds with 1 stone. The kid is reading their story, you're facilitating it, and little Johnny's going to sleep. You just have to be flexible, and you should be creative. And again, think outside of the box. A lot of times, a lot of frustration, a lot of fear, a lot of apprehension from parents comes from the fact that they have never taught in the classroom. So they're thinking, how on earth am I expected to do this homeschool thing, to do this virtual learning thing, and I'm not a teacher, but I also have this baby? As much as you can, include that baby. If you're doing an art project with the older kid, and the older kid has a legit painting project, and your younger children are old enough to paint, let them paint. They want to be involved with the volcano building. Let them be involved with it. It's the cutest thing. That will be my biggest advice as far as handling the younger ones. Utilize nap time. Utilize alternative instruction schedules. So if you put your baby down for bed at 7, that may be the best time that you can teach science, or your more things where there's a lot of, because your kid during the day. You get my point. You got to mix and match. There's no rule against making your day flexible. You don't have to start at 8 and finish. And because they ate lunch at 11:30 at the school, your kid has to eat lunch at 11:30. That's not how homeschooling works. You can tailor it to your family's needs. And that's what I really want to implore you in this video. Homeschooling should not come in your family and wreck it. You need to bring homeschooling into your family as an additional accessory to your family. And the biggest thing with multiple children is just to be flexible. Get those tools. When you're getting crayons, don't set yourself up and buy only crayons for the older children if you know you have a 3-year-old that's going to have a tantrum when it's time to break out those crayons. You just did that to yourself. Let them get their own crayons. Let her think she's doing something. If there's art, you're fighting Johnny away from the art and he's steady crawling to it. Give him his own little area and he'll be fine. And even if it's something like, oh, it's toxic to the child, give him something that's child friendly. Leave a comment down below if there's something that you feel like, okay, that works for that child, but what about in this situation? Leave a comment and I'll answer it. So that's the biggest thing for me when you're talking about homeschooling, virtual learning, multiple children. Number one, the tools. Whatever tools that you are required to have or you think that you should have for your family. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going, I have stuff for I have 2 of everything, but I'm not going to tell you that's required for you and you have to do that. Your kid does not have to have 2 computers. Your kid don't have to have, that is not what you need for successful homeschooling. You don't need that. Ultimately, if you have 1 computer, they can work on that 1 computer. It's just going to take organization, which leads me to the second one. Get you a family calendar. Get you a family calendar and put everything from your learning to your chores to your appointments. That way, everyone in the house knows what's happening for that week, for that day, and that will help you drive what it is that you're going to be doing. Crayons, pencils, different things like that. If you can afford it, get multiple for the multiple children because that just eliminates an argument. If you're ready for that fight, then get 1 and then put it on the chart. So-and-so, you're going to share it during this time, but then free art time, if you want to be the only person to do it, that's during this time. Computer time for school for Mary is going to literally be between X time and Y time. Gaming can happen on the computer during this time. So again, it's going to take organization. And then when you're talking about an infant, the biggest thing that I can say is don't hold yourself to the guidelines of a brick and mortar teacher and thinking that you can't hold your baby while you're teaching science. You can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And use everyday moments as teachable moments. What do I mean by that? If you're trying to teach measurement and the best thing you have, you're teaching and you have the baby, include the baby and the older kids in making a cake. Use actual tools. The baby would love it. Or the baby won't love it, but it's attached to you and it's a little puppy and it's good to go. And you're teaching measurements. You don't have to get a book that says a cup and never show the kid what a cup of water looks like. Go to the kitchen, get the things that you need, and your baby's in a high chair and everybody's happy and learning is taking place. If you need to know what a mile is, pack the kids up in the car and actually drive an actual mile. That is the beauty of homeschooling. Brick and mortar teachers cannot do that without even a permission slip, let alone it's just not conducive for that environment. That's the beauty of homeschooling. I have a very fussy baby. What do I do? Keep the baby on whatever you do to soothe the baby, whether you hold the baby, put the baby in a swing, whatever it is that you do for the baby, you can continue to do for the baby. Just bring the kid over in that area. Let's say your kid loves the living room, or loves your bedroom, or loves their nursery. Learning can take place in there. You don't have to be at the dining room table or the kitchen listen, that's the beauty of it. So that's my recommendation, a couple of recommendations that I suggest you implement in your home as far as multiple children. If you have a question related to your specific needs, your specific family, please leave a comment down below or email me and I will answer your question. I will have my email linked down below. That's how I was able to manage homeschooling plus having a daycare and having multiple children all at the same time. It was about organization, preparation. Definitely, it was about my attitude. If you need help making that schedule, let me know. I can help you do that. Without further ado, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.